Parenting Junkie.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Parenting Junkie, the place to go to love parenting and for parenting from love. Today I want to talk about the natural process of learning to read, of instilling a love of reading and of learning to write as well. So literacy skills from an unschooling bent, which is child-led and slow-paced, etc. If you like this type of content and it's relevant for you, then you'll want to head on over to theparentingjunkie.com and sign up for email updates. I have a free meditation to send you when you sign up. Plus, then you'll know about upcoming courses, webinars, trainings, etc. and never miss an episode here on the Parenting Junkie. The first tip that we probably all know is read to your child. Reading starts from the age of basically 0, reading and talking to children and really exploring language arts, so speaking to children, but then really sitting down with a book from the age of babyhood and onwards, especially toddlers, etc., as language is developing, is important because when you read a book, usually that will introduce words, scenarios, vocabulary that you wouldn't use and interject in regular sentences, so your child won't be exposed to it just from speaking to you. Plus, I think that we're oversold on the idea of speaking to children all the time, to the extent that we're actually interrupting their flow when they're playing and inhibiting their self-directed independent play. So I don't like the idea of just jabbering to a child all the time. I think when we sit down and have a meal together, we have a conversation, and when we sit down and read together, that's a great time to talk. Once a child's slightly older, at the age of 3, 4, etc., you can start to introduce audiobooks as well. We do this using the Echo Dot from Amazon, and we buy our books on Audible. You can do it on iTunes, you can do it on, you can subscribe to Sparkle Stories, you can subscribe to podcasts. I'll list some great resources for audiobooks on the blog post for this video, so check that out on theparentingjunkie.com. Reading to your child and making that a time of connection, a time of joy, a time where you're sitting comfortably, where you're cozy, a time that they associate reading with something really joyful and fun. The second is to follow their interest in letters and in literacy and in reading. So children will naturally usually begin to take interest in reading, in writing, in making signs on paper, and we might not even notice that those are pre-reading and writing skills. So just making marks on paper and saying, I wrote you a letter, is the beginning of writing. Making just scribbles, etc. So we've got to respect that, honor that, and follow the child's interest. So as they begin to take interest in it, as they begin to initiate it, that's when we support it and facilitate it further. Leading on from this is the concept of starting with writing and not reading. Many homeschoolers and teachers have spoken of this idea that actually it's much easier to start with creating the letters than decoding them on paper. So starting with the idea of copying a letter of a child who wants to write you a note, or who wants to write his name, or who wants to make a sign, right? Starting to copy letters out and write them on paper and putting focus there and practicing there might be a stronger way to learn literacy skills than starting by decoding and reading the letters. Of course, it all becomes a bit of a mumble jumble as it happens organically. It's not linear that you first write and then you read. The next is also to consider focusing when we're teaching our child, when they want to understand what a letter says, focusing on letter sounds and not on letter names. It's very confusing to look at an A, right? I have an A over here. If I said to a child, this is an A, and then it doesn't necessarily make that sound. But if we look at this and we say which is what it usually makes, although sometimes it makes A, then when they are starting to decode words and understand what animal, read a letter out, a word out, then they have that association with the A. So starting with the letter sounds, especially with consonants, that's important. For example, M, instead of saying M, we would say m, right? So that they're understanding what the letter sounds like, and that's going to help them to decode it. The next one is to expose them to sight words. So there are some words that are just the most common words in the English language that they're going to come across again and again, and these they won't decode, they won't read them like and. they'll just get a picture in their head of the word and whenever that comes up, they will have that picture in their head. So helping them with sight words, and the best way I think to do that is by reading Bob's books with them. So I really like these beginner Bob's books. Kids learn to decode words with most of the Bob books, and then they also learn sight words with the sight word Bob books. You can also hang up sight words in the house if you like, but I prefer not to have things all over my home hanging up. But when you're reading out to your children, using your finger to follow along the words and point out words to them is also going to help them. The next is in the early years to read a lot of rhyming word books, or to sing songs with them and read poems to them, rhyming and playing with words and figuring out what the word starts with and what the word sounds like, and trying to play a game where I say bat, then you say hat, then I say cat, then you say sat, and we go through all the different words that sound alike, is going to help children to start to pick up on the similarities between words, on the structure of words. And then maybe I can also show you that all of those words end with an AT, and you can begin to see there's patterns here, there's things that make sense. My next tip is to do it on the go. Often as homeschoolers, we think we need to sit down with children and open a textbook and read it out with them, but sometimes that puts too much pressure on the situation and the learning doesn't happen as fluidly and as naturally. But when you're in the car and you're looking at signs, when you're on a hike and you're reading a map, etc., etc., you have things that are going to motivate you to want to understand and to decode, right? When you have a real life experience on the go, it makes the reading relevant, it makes it real, it makes it helpful in real life, and you're so much more motivated and interested, and you learn to read without even noticing. So, you know, if your child has got a Lego set and they want to now follow the Lego instructions, or if they got a letter from grandma that they want to read, those things are going to be far more motivating than sitting down with a textbook. So having real life experiences and showing them the power of words and how words hold within them information that is relevant and interesting to them. The next one is to expose to them your love of reading. If a child never sees you sitting down and reading a book for pleasure, they're unlikely to make that link between reading and pleasure, right? They don't realize that it's something that you enjoy. So you want to try and have them see you at those times that you're sitting down with a book, and see that that is something that is a focus of joy. So you're focusing on what's in it for them, on the benefit that you get, and you're exposing them to that through deep modeling. The next one leads on from that point, which is never create manipulations and around reading. So a lot of the programs that I've seen in schools pay kids to read. What kind of message does that send to a child when they get $1 or they get a cookie every time they read a book? That reading is boring, that reading is a job, that reading is a chore, that we need to bribe you to read? No, reading is valuable because you benefit from it. You get information, you get an experience, you go on an adventure through words. I'm not going to pay you, I'm not going to bribe you, I'm not going to punish you, I'm not going to praise you, I'm not going to reward you for reading, right? I'm not going to say, wow, you're such a clever boy, or you're such a good girl, or you're not going to hear me talking to grandma about, wow, isn't it amazing what a big reader you are? No, I'm just going to join in your enthusiasm and your joy for the intrinsic value that reading holds. And the final one is make reading available in your home through the physical environment. Send the message that reading is important to you. If your bookshelves are jam-packed with books so that your kids can't get a book out, if they're higgledy-piggledy, if they can't find their books, if library books keep getting lost, if they're not at child's height for the child to reach, if they're not really interesting and they're not being displayed in a way that's interesting, or if you don't rotate books in and out so that they get their fresh books that they haven't seen in a while, then they might find books not super interesting. You need to treat your books the way you want them to be treated by your children, and you can really send that message through treating your books with respect and through decluttering them and showing your children how important reading is. I hope this was helpful for you. If it was, please tag anyone who you think might enjoy it. If the button on YouTube here is red, then you are not subscribed, so click that button and subscribe to the channel so you're sure to get future videos. And please sign up for email updates at theparentingjunkie.com so that I can give you your free meditation and invite you to future courses, webinars, trainings, parties. Keep on loving parenting and parenting from love, because your kids need you almost as much as you need them. Bye.
The Parenting Junkie.